r/AskReddit. Prostitute of Reddit. Who was the grossest customer you've had? I had a guy that just wanted me to spit full globs of phlegm in his mouth while laid on his back with his mouth wide open. I'm rarely grossed out, but I just can't deal with copious amounts of spit or phlegm. It took so much effort not to gag/throw up just from seeing it slide past his tonsils. On the other end of the spectrum, I had a guy who liked to just lay on the sofa while I sat on him and watched TV. Human furniture fetish is definitely my favorite type of booking. Was a stripper. The ones who tell you that you look like their daughter/daughter's friend/ECT are pretty gross. Foot fetish dudes would come in at the end of the night, and the sweatier your feet were the better. Most girls love them though, because they give amazing foot rubs and pay you for it. Had a guy come in and lay on the floor and pay me to try to fart on his face. He was dressed like Carlton on Bobbin Street. Honestly, a lot of girls like ones like this too. They pay really well and you don't have to really do any work. Condom avoiders. Those who just plain reeked of beau, cheesy feet, dirty ass, too many cigarettes, and who were complete strangers to a toothbrush. People who were scabby and scaly with suspicious sores in places you definitely don't want to see. Lesions. The guy who loved people to fart on him and in his mouth wasn't too flash either, but you got a laugh out of it at least. Phone worker here. I had a guy wanted me to put bodily excretions role play on him. I was so stumped. So I said, if you've been a bad boy, I'll piss on your face. If you've been a good boy, I'll shit in your mouth. Cue the minute-long groaning, grunting, and screaming the guy did with what I could only assume was the filthiest, never-ending tsunami of spunk, followed with a thank you mistress. I logged off for the day and did other things. I have no problem with kinks or fetishes, but he acted like he won the lottery. Not really a sex worker, but I stripped for a bit in college. The amount of older guys saying things to me like tell me your real age, or don't worry your little secret is safe with me, while grinning terribly was always gross. I look young, so that wasn't very pleasant. It got worse when they would try and blackmail me into actual sexual contact by saying they'd reveal my actual age. Fortunately I was 19, so could just tell them to go ahead and do it. Not my story, but I heard it from a friend. You know how girls will spit on your dick to lube it up before blowing you? There was this one customer who told his girl for the night that it was wasteful to spit on his dick and requested that she spit in his mouth instead. For every time she spit in his mouth, he would give her $10. I have two different guys that I'll never forget. The first was one that wanted my feet to be filthy, dirty and stinky if possible. Then I had to smash one foot in his face and get him off with the other foot. The other guy wouldn't let me turn on any lights at all, and when I got undressed I touched him and found his one ball was the size of a pillow. It freaked me out so bad I told him I started my period and needed to leave pronto. There's many more, but these two guys always stand out. Way back in the day, when I was a stripper, I was giving a dance. The room was dark, and I was giving a lap dance to a usual customer. The customers were allowed to touch, as long as it wasn't any no-no zone. So I was sitting on his lap, no grinding, his hands to his side, and I randomly felt warm goo hit my back. I have no idea how I didn't notice anything sticking out, or how he managed to get off with no physical touch, but I was mortified. I got up, demanded my pay, and quickly ran to the bathroom. Had to have the bouncer escort him out. Yes, not a sex work, but a sexy worker. A friend of mine worked in the office for an escort agency. The grossest story she told me was about a guy who seemed to have a thing for cutting women up with his long fingernails. After the first complaint he was put on a list of like, don't accept bookings from this guy/number, but he kept using burners and different names, and every time the girl would complain that he'd basically only want to finger them, but he had long sharp nails and had a habit of scraping, then get agitated when asked to stop, then he'd leave. Just so gross and borderline psychopathic. Edit. Okay, not borderline. I'm not a sex worker, but I did run a bar opposite one of Edinburgh's infamous saunas. Sort of legal brothel the police turned a blind eye to. Anyway, the girls used to come into my bar once their shift was over for a well-earned drink, and so I got to know some of them pretty well. Inevitably conversation would turn to their clients' kinks. Two spring to mind. the high court judge who came in to be spanked and be told he needed to be punished. Not that exciting, but the one I can never forget was the peanut butter man. He would come in the day before with a massive bag of peanuts for his favorite girl and book an appointment the next day where the girl would shit on him and he would smear it all over himself saying I'm the peanut butter man over and over. I could never get that image out of my mind. Edit. Wow, this blew up. This is my most upvoted comment ever. Thank you for the gold and silver. Never had these before either. I'm a dancer at a topless strip club. No removing bottoms allowed. I had this guy coming to see me about once a week. He'd give me 100 to 150 every time he came in, but each time try to push the boundaries further and further. Eventually he kept trying to whip his dick out, and I had to tell him no. Next time he came in, while I was turned around shaking my ass in his face, he pulled his dick out, condom already on, grabbed my hips, and tried to put me onto his dick. Seriously shitty. Another one of my friends was doing a half hour with a guy and she flipped over and farted in his face. She was mortified, but he tipped her 20 at the end, so he must have enjoyed it. Literally tonight at work, a girl got fired for prostitution. She was screaming at the manager the whole time, in the middle of the room, all the customers watching her. I only gave him a hand job. It's not like I fucked him. Every single girl that goes back there fucks. Not true. What's the big deal? I was just jacking him off. She's been a dancer for a while. She claimed another girl told her it was okay and that's why she did it. Bullshit. You know the rules, and you got caught. It happens. I've seen girls sucking and fucking literally 2 feet from me. I had a girl wave and smile at me as she was jacking a dude off. In full view of the camera lol. I had a customer who liked to wear a bonnet, suck on a pacifier, and wear a dipper under his pants. He liked to call me mommy and be spanked. And he paid well for it. I had a guy that loved the smell of sweaty ass. He would always tell me when he was coming in, always near the end of the night, so I wouldn't go to the dressing room and freshen up as much as I usually would, and he would literally give me 200 just to stand in front of him, ass cheeks apart, while he smelled it. I guess the first one was the grossest, the rest of them were just weird. I have so many stories from dancing lol. I make fetish clips, and I've had some odd ones. Probably the grossest are the crush people. They're usually pretty polite, at least I'll get a message asking if I like crushing things. I say nothing alive, and they thank me and leave. Just makes my skin crawl to think of hurting an animal to satisfy a sexual urge. Although one time, and of course this could have been fake, I had someone who asked, and I said no. They ended up confessing to being ashamed of it, and we chatted for a bit. I tried to help them out, and suggested therapy to help them deal with the guilt and self-hate. I still think about them sometimes, and honestly I hope the sad messages were part of a fetish I don't know about, because I don't want anyone feeling that awful about themselves. Throwaway account, because I don't want this associated with me in any way. But I've got a weird fetish for death, especially strangulation stuff, and I'm so deeply ashamed of it that it's actually made me contemplate suicide before. I love people. I make my living as a medic because I live for the days when I get to make a difference in people's life, and I spend a lot of time volunteering at charity organizations. I'm a social happy person. I've had a great life, mostly free of trauma, but somewhere some wires must have crossed, because since I was 15, and maybe younger, honestly, I've been stuck with this awful fetish that's always lingering in the back of my mind whenever I stop to feel good about myself for even half a second. And I can't talk about it, because no one would ever stay friends with me after that. It keeps me from really, truly ever opening up with the people I date, the friends who I trust most in life, hell, to my own brother, who I literally would tell anything except for that. And I've been told that seeking therapy for it is a no-go, because most therapists won't touch that, or other dark shit like pedophilia with a 10-foot pole. Thankfully, I've never hurt anyone, or even had the desire to actually act on it, and as a medic I've seen my share of death, thank God, doesn't do anything for me when it's real life and real suffering. But I've jacked off to some pretty messed up shit, which to me is almost as bad as actually hurting someone. I'd say that a pedophile jacking off to child porn or drawings of child porn is reprehensible, even if they didn't hurt anyone. So I can't claim some special immunity, and sometimes I wonder if it wouldn't be safer and better to off myself, or at least isolate myself from society, just in case I become something dangerous. I'm still young, you know. Most criminals like this don't act until they get older, until it's had time to take away their humanity. I don't want to leave a legacy of suicide, but it's better than a legacy of violence. I don't want to die, and I know my family would miss me, and I love them so much, and don't want to hurt them. But, really, what are hurt feelings compared to the other possibilities for how I end up? Fetish shame is absolutely real. I think that a lot of the good that I try to do is really just to justify my continued existence to myself. I'd love it if you liked and subscribed.